The first thing you're going to do is go to a blank page in your sketchbook and then sketch a big circle. We're going to start our acrylic painting journey by creating a color wheel. Once you have that circle, please split it into 6 sections total, and then each section, you split that in half to get 12 sections. So here I'm going to change up my numbers a bit. We are initially going to paint 6 colors, but we're actually going to add tertiary colors, which means like the third mix of color in the color wheel. So I'm adjusting my numbers, mark 1 through 12, and then you're going to label where yellow would be, red would be, and where blue would be. So those are your primary colors, and they need to be at the third part of your color wheel. So yellow will be next to number 1, blue will be next to number 5, red will be next to number 10, and then you're going to have the secondary colors in between the primary ones. Now we're going to get your paint. You don't need a lot of paint for this. You can always go back and get more. We're going to start with the primary colors, blue, yellow, and red. Remember, you can make any colors with just those 3, plus white and black, of course. Right now I'm using the glass of water I have to the side and wetting my brush. That way I can thin out the paint and make it a little bit easier to work with. This isn't watercolor though, you don't need to saturate it or add too much water. Just enough to thin it out so it's not chunky and it's easy to use. And I like to spread it on my palette if I can to make it thinner. Then you're going to paint in the yellow wedge that you labeled, so it should be at number 1. I like to outline my shape if possible, since we're doing something more specific. That's what I'm doing. I'm using a flat brush and just following the edges to my best ability. It's okay if it's a little messy. And then once I have it outlined, I will fill it in small strokes. You can test out what type of stroke works for you, what kind of texture you like. I want to get all of the excess brush off of my paintbrush, so you can see me like really flattening it on there. And then make sure you rotate your brush around because it's shaped in a way for you to get a lot of different angles with it, so take advantage of that instead of just using one side over and over. Once you have your yellow, you're going to go in and add the other 2 primary colors in the correct spot. So you can thin out your red and blue a bit, and then again, add it to the correct wedge. Be careful. If you happen to mess up, it's okay. Acrylic is pretty forgiving. You can actually paint over it if it's not too much. So I'm going to speed up me painting the next 2 wedges. But I do the same thing. I try my best to outline the shape and then I color it in with my brush. So I rotated my paper to make it easier on my hand. You are more than welcome to do this. Please don't feel like you aren't allowed to rotate the art you're working on. Do whatever is more comfortable for you. And then I believe it's my blue one where I actually painted outside of my lines. So you're going to see me make the other ones a bit thicker in hopes of creating an almost perfect circle at the end. So far I am using 3 different brushes for each of my primary colors because I have access to that. You will be using one brush, so you're going to make sure that you have a paper towel and a cup of water. You're going to wipe off the excess paint, dip it into the water, and then you can grab new colors. Okay, it's time for the fun part. You're going to make your first secondary color. I'm starting off with making orange, so I'm using the excess red on my brush and dipping it into the yellow. I'm sorry that's kind of off camera. You're just going to keep on adding yellow into that red. yellow is lighter than red. So you're going to have to use way more yellow than red in order to get a almost pure shade of orange. Do that to the best of your ability. Try to not make it too yellow or too red, right? That's not pure orange. So I'm testing it in the corner just to see what it looks like away from, like being right next to the yellow. And it looks too dark to me still, so I'm pulling in a bit more yellow. You'll be doing this with a different type of palette, so you might have to just dip your brush into yellow and then put it in red and so on. But there's nothing wrong with that. So keep on doing it until you like your color, and then you can add it to your wedge. Next fun part, we're going to make a tertiary color, which is when you mix a primary color with a secondary color. So in this case, we are mixing orange with yellow in order to make a yellow orange. So you're just going to add more yellow to that orange you just made to make it lighter, and then put it into the wedge that is between yellow and orange. If you notice that your lines are getting a bit wonky, again, you can use this paint to go on top of the dry paint. That's a really nice thing about acrylic. You can paint on top of things without it really moving around. Okay, time for our next tertiary color. So we're adding red to that first orange we made. So you're trying to make a red orange. So this orange should look darker than the pure orange. So keep on adding red. You won't have to add as much red as you did yellow because red is darker. So it is a stronger color. So add enough so you can see that difference between red orange, orange, and yellow orange. And then add it to the wedge that is between red and orange. The next color we'll be making is green. So because I used all of that yellow I had to make my oranges, I'm just going to take a bit more yellow. Actually, quite a bit of yellow because, again, since blue is so strong, you do need more yellow. We always need more of the lighter color because the darker color is just so pigmented. So I'm grabbing enough yellow to hopefully make my 3 types of green. And I'm just grabbing a bit of water and smoothing it out. This is because I'm using my chunky paint. You all should have much smoother paint. So I'm going to load up some blue onto my brush and just pick an edge and kind of start mixing it together. I always mix things at the edge so I can leave some of the pure hue left intact instead of just using up all of that first color when I'm trying to mix it. So I'm going to add more and more yellow until that blue turns into a green that looks pure green and not bluish green or yellow green. So take your time with that. And then you will paint the next wedge. And this wedge should be between the yellow and the blue. So the amount of yellow I initially had was not enough to make a green that looked like pure green to me. So I'm just adding more yellow onto my palette right now, and then I'm going to continue mixing it until I like it. The next green is going to be yellow green, so I'm adding more yellow into this, just grabbing more from my palette. You can pour a little more or ask your neighbors for some extra yellow if they have any, and make sure it's significantly brighter than that first green you made. And then put the yellow green in between yellow and green. Now it's time to make our yellow green, so grab some extra yellow if needed and mix it together and then paint it in the wedge. After that, you can do the blue green, which will be a lot easier to mix. You just have to add a tiny bit of blue into your darker green. And our last section, I believe that's about a third. Again, not good at math. We are going to mix purple. So personally, I struggle a bit with purple. Maybe that's because my ideal purple is a different shade or tint. So you're going to start with your red and then just take a tiny bit of blue and start mixing it together. Blue is stronger than red, so just take your time with it. Once you have a purple that you kind of like, so it's not too red or too blue, you can start painting it in the wedge. I think for my eyes, I see purple with some white and black usually added to it, so I did struggle with making this color. You can definitely take more time than me on trying to find that perfect purple for you. So with my brush, I didn't really bother cleaning it since I'm still making purple. I grabbed more blue and brought it down to my purple mix, and I am making a blue purple first. So you should be able to see that blue cool tone come out more in that purple color. These are pretty dark because we aren't adding any white to it and stuff. But of course, your neutral purple, your pure purple, can probably be lighter than mine if you add a bit more red. And for our last wedge, we will be making a red purple. So you're going to grab some more red from the bottle if needed and start mixing it into the neutral or pure purple. And if it looks too red, that happened to me. I actually pulled in some of the darker purple to mix it all together in order to just make a color that was red purple without being too heavy on either side. For the last part of this painting practice, it's super simple. You are going to make a very simple value scale with any color you want. So if you'd rather do a red, a blue, or one of the secondary colors, just make it again or grab the color that you have access to and paint the pure color. And then you're slowly going to add some white to it and just paint a rectangle or a line of the lighter color. Add more white to it, paint a line of that really light color, and then add more. Do your best to get about 4 strips just so you can see how white changes your color. Black changes your color too, but we're going to focus on white for this. So at the end of this painting tutorial, you should have a color wheel and a mini value scale just so you can see how color can change as you add different colors together.